We've now had more mass shootings in 2024 than there have been days in the year. Quote, President Joe Biden from the U.S. edition, New York, written today, February 15, 2024. New Year's Day was 45 days ago. He is talking in regards of a mass shooting that occurred this week, a mere couple days ago, in Kansas City after or during a Super Bowl party. Mass shootings and gun violence in general is a blaring issue in the U.S. that has only gotten worse with time. It is an issue that has been around since the 90s, and little to no solutions large solutions have really been passed to subsidize this issue, which was completely within our power as a nation. We have the tools to completely get rid of, or maybe not completely get rid of, but significantly decrease the occurrences of mass shootings. We just simply aren't implementing them, which is my biggest point of my speech today, is that we should follow suit other nations that have had this issue before and have successfully decreased it in doing things such as background checks, limiting the types of guns that can be purchased, and just advocating for ourselves as citizens of the U.S. Because truly, the fact that this issue has only been allowed to grow worse should be something that disturbs every U.S. citizen. A large counterpoint that people often take when it comes to when the issue of gun regulation is even brought up is the fact that the Second Amendment always needs to be the way it was, and that Second Amendment trumps everything else. The Second Amendment was written in a time where there was no army, there was no established navy, there was no established police. We have all those things in modern times. So my question is, why should an average U.S. citizen with no background check should be allowed to have a deadly weapon that is ages beyond the technology they had when they wrote the Second Amendment? Quote, it took the incident to wake everybody up and say, we've got to do something about the assault weapons. Quote, State Senator of California from 2012 in an article Walnut Creek, California wrote of the same year. Back in 2012, actually more than a decade ago, the question of assault rifles and what kinds of guns should be allowed to the people was a question then, and it's remained static. There have been regulations and such and checks implemented in areas of the U.S. like in Chicago. However, like I said previously, it hasn't been much substantial progress towards ending this issue of ours. Quote, but these tactics have not substantially reduced shootings in Chicago. In fact, as possession arrests skyrocketed, shootings increased. Quote, the Marshall Project March 2023. This is referring to how police will pull over people on the suspects of minor things like outdated license plates, and they arrest them because of illegal firearm purchases, which I'm not arguing that they shouldn't do that. However, the article also, and I'm paraphrasing here, talks about how cases where there is gun violence, the amount of times that they've arrested and put to justice the person who perpetrated it has actually decreased. So clearly, there is an effort being made, but it's not the right direction. Like, the intent is there, but it's clearly not being effective, just plainly put it. So we should be putting our efforts towards something of substance that will actually go to solving this issue, which other nations, like I touched in the beginning, have done. Nations like Australia, which have similar aspects to our own nation, have done. I believe we should follow suit of what other nations with similar issues have done in the past. Quote, in 1967, after a mass shooting in England, the country banned semi-automatic weapons used in the shooting. In 1996, after a mass shooting in Australia, a mandatory gun buybacks saw 1 million firearms melted in the SOG. Mass shootings dramatically went from once every 18 months to only one in the following 26 years. Quote, the Toronto Star, January 2022. There are now, it is very difficult to obtain a firearm, especially in Australia. And though that is kind of the sacrifice you have to take, I do, and I think everyone should believe that the sacrifice of having a gun being harder to obtain is not as important as the value of someone's life, which clearly, one is more important than the other. And clearly, other nations have presented the solution and that it works and is effective. So I believe that is what we should strive to as a nation, because the solution is already there. So I implore you to ask yourself, why aren't we doing the same? And also, as citizens, we should advocate for the end to gun violence, because it can feel hard to, we aren't senators, we aren't writing legislation, but even at the citizen level, you can advocate for yourself and your community. Massachusetts Attorney General Andrea Campbell has made her intentions of continuing to effectively lower gun violence in the community abundantly clear. She must be doing something right, as, quote, Massachusetts, quote, has the lowest firearm death rate in the county. Again, following suit of another state. This isn't specifically to California. I'm just speaking in general terms. That I digress. We should, as citizens, constantly be advocating for the end of gun violence, for yourself, for your community, and for the nation as a whole, because action has to be taken even at the citizen level. Thank you.